Welcome to Peculiar Tales, the show where we dive into the stranger things in history, urban legends, ghost stories, and anything else we find, well, peculiar. I'm Christy.
And I'm Dawn. What if there was a place that, for a time, was considered the largest of its kind, and it held wartime crimes when occupied by Japanese forces, played roles in wars, and became victim to Mother Nature's wrath from a volcano eruption? There is a place, and that place has become one of the most haunted places in Asia. Today's episode takes us to the Philippines to tell the tales of an airbase, a place that has been shrouded in war and death for a very long time. We will be talking of secrets and despair. Join us while we uncover the stories of the Clarkfield Airbase. In 1903, the U.S. made camp in the Philippines and named it Fort Stotsenburg, in honor of the late Colonel Stotsenburg, who died leading his regiment to a location. By the time 1919 rolled around, the camp was renamed to Clarkfield, in honor, this time, of Major Harold Clark, who was an Army aviator.
World War II brought devastation to Clarkfield. Just hours after Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces launched their attack on Clarkfield, annihilating the U.S. aircrafts on the ground and badly damaging Clarkfield itself. After this attack, the Japanese forces occupied the land, using it for military prisons and execution grounds. Clarkfield was in Japanese occupation for roughly 3 years, until its liberation in 1945 with the U.S. and Filipino forces.
After Clarkfield was liberated in 1945, it grew to be a major U.S. airbase. The airbase played strategic roles in wars, such as the Korean War and Vietnam. In its prime, the airbase was one of the largest overseas, having hospitals, schools, housing, and infrastructure as well. This airbase was a big deal. Some have described it as somewhat as an American city just in the Philippines. More devastation came to the airbase in 1991 when Mount Pinatubo erupted. The city-like airbase was now buried in ash, and the roofs of buildings collapsed under volcanic debris. And so, after 90 years, the U.S. withdrew and closed the airbase. Since the closure of the airbase, it became the Clark Freeport Zone. Though this is a major economic center, remnants from its military days remain. Some have been repurposed, while others stand abandoned.
Now, with such history of violence and despair, there are some stories that emerge from time to time, stories of hauntings and uneasiness. Clarkfield Air Base earned a reputation for being possibly one of the most haunted former military bases in Asia. There is former U.S. personnel, security guards, and curious people exploring the area that made reports of the hospital possibly being haunted. The hospital is claimed to be haunted by apparitions of wounded soldiers and ghostly figures in surgical rooms, while in other areas of the hospital there are claims of lights flickering with no power, the sound of gurneys moving around, and that screaming and footsteps are heard at times. The basement is where some of the ghost hunts say the dead bodies were kept, and the basement is thought to be haunted by something with a presence that feels non-human. While there is no scientific evidence of the haunting, what is factual is that the hospital did exist and treated war casualties, and that death occurred in the hospital as well from disease and war. The hospital has been on TV shows and the host of a popular ghost hunting show.
Earlier, we touched down on the Japanese occupation that lasted for a few years, and how the land was used as an execution site, and war crimes were committed there. In the years that followed the abandonment of the base in 1991, it has been claimed that the spirits of the victims still wander around. Some say that due to the mass graves, the spirits are restless. It has been said that the whispers or cries at night happen near the restricted areas or the overgrown areas. People have said that they do have a feeling of being watched while being there. The figures in the distance of Japanese soldiers on patrol still linger. While there have been many that have reported these activities, nothing has ever been proven.
Security guards and locals have reported that they had witnessed soldiers in uniform walking around at night. When these figures are approached, they simply vanish. Some guards are said to refuse to patrol certain areas because they had heard voices on the radio that should not have been there and objects being moved. It is said that these are the most common reportings. In addition to the ghostly soldiers who are possibly on nightly patrol, there is someone else who is reported to haunt the area. The Lady in White is an apparition of a pale woman in white who is seen near roads and vanishes when vehicles come near. Folklore says that a young woman, possibly from the 1970s, wearing white, tries to hail down a taxi that is near the base, but when approached, she vanishes. There is no real link to the Clarkfield base, but nonetheless, the stories have been told of the Lady in White.
Harry the Ghost is seen a lot. Harry is said to be an American airman who had committed suicide by hanging in the second-floor rafters to avoid being captured in World War II. And in 1973, there was a report that a faceless soldier in camouflage asked for a cigarette and then disappeared. When the eruption occurred, there were people who reported seeing figures moving in the ash-covered ruins, and that equipment will be activated and sounds that cannot be confirmed echo through the empty hangars. These reportings have been loosely explained away by saying that it could be the structure of the buildings being unstable, or the wind could have made noises, debris being moved could have caused the sounds, and simply because of the environment, the mind could have been playing tricks on the mind. So, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Like, how many stories have we done where there's possible hauntings because of all the energies that were there
Right.
during the living years?
Especially anything tragic like war and the eruption.
Occupation.
Yeah.
Yeah, volcano.
A volcano.
Like, that's pretty huge.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the volcano, when it erupted, it was the second largest eruption of the 20th century.
Wow.
20,000 people plus had to be evacuated off that base.
Oh my goodness.
There are towns that don't have 20,000 people on them.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the terror, the fear?
Trying to get everybody out safely.
That kind of energy, like, sticks. Like, that's my opinion anyway, right?
Yeah.
That energy sticks.
Well, we've talked about it before, right? Like a record that's engraved with a sound.
It's just a loop, right?
Yeah.
And then the hospital. So, by all means, it sounds like the hospital is the most haunted area at the base.
Which makes sense. I mean, when you're looking at haunted places, you generally tend to see a lot of asylums, hospitals, places like that. And I think just because there's so much that happens in these places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the hospital now is said I don't know if it's true, but doing research, it says that they wanted to convert it into a museum.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I love when they take old buildings like that and turn them into museums. I love museums, and I love when it's in an old building that has history. It's on its own.
And with the hospital having so much energies, rather than tearing it down, it would be interesting in the future to see if anybody on any ghost hunts or any kind of walkthroughs, the workers, whatever, if they're hearing things still.
Right.
Like, that would be interesting to see.
I don't see the stories stopping here. I'm sure if they did turn it into a museum, there would be so many more stories from visitors and people going in where, out of the corner of your eye, you see something shift or you hear a noise down the hall or a light flickered or.
Yeah. I think that it would be the most interesting way out of all the tours you can take if you're on vacation or if you're in an area.
Mm-hmm.
That would be high on my list to go check out.
Oh, absolutely.
So part of this economic hub, it's
Mm-hmm.
generating money. It's home to global giants like Samsung and UPS,
Oh, really?
among others. Yeah. So this economic center, it's important.
Yeah,
And then you have, like, let's just touch down real quick on the 10,000-foot long runway.
that's a big runway.
Wow. Like, I don't know how long the average runway is. I do not, by no means am I an aviator, or do I look up this type of information like just willy nilly, but a 10,000-foot runway seems pretty big.
Right,
Now,
exactly.
they say the reason for this runway being so long is it was for the B-17s during the Vietnam War.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
these planes needed a whole lot of room.
Yeah. And I just kind of looked it up because I was curious after you said that. So it says that the average is between 8,000 and 13,000 feet.
Oh, so it is average
So it's
then.
on like the high end of average, I guess. But 10,000 feet of just runway
That's like a
seems
long ways.
so big.
Yeah. Wow. I was like, I seen that and I found that interesting.
Yeah.
So what if the ash didn't bury everything? What if while the world moved on, the base kept something? The runways are cracked and the hangars are now empty, and echoes are heard of people who lived on the base and are now gone. I mean, the base was over 90 years old and it had seen pride and death, occupation and liberation. It has seen ruin and regrowth for the sake of progress. The land has witnessed much, and as it usually goes with all these different energies, something is sometimes left for us to find. That is, if anyone's willing to look. History tells us the facts of what happened, and logic says only what can be proven is reality. In the future, there will be more stories that science can't prove. But like so many have said in the past, just because it's not seen or cannot be touched does not mean it does not exist. Sometimes the past has more to tell long after the history books have been closed. And as always, thank you for listening to us today. And if you liked what you heard, leave a comment, review, or rating, as it really does help us reach more listeners. And until the peculiar calls again for another tale, bye for now.